Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, 6 non-verbal communication habits to avoid as a speaker. My name's Peter Dew, and I'm a public speaking trainer and coach, and I travel around Australia running workshops, doing coaching, and I keep in touch with my clients via these webinars. My passion is helping you guys, my clients, be more effective, more confident, and more influential in the spoken word. Most of us have got some passions, some knowledge, ideas that our communities need to hear from us, and not having the courage or the ability to stand up and speak is something I don't want anyone to not be able to do, because people out there, our clients, our communities need to hear our messages, your knowledge, your education. Just to let you know, for the first time, I've opened up my web camera so you can actually see my face as we go. How to participate in webinars. I see a few new names, so maybe you haven't done a webinar before. Please ask questions as you go. There's a question box, and if you type a question in that question box, I can see that, I can respond to it, or I can delay it and cover it later on in the webinar. Also take notes, but I do record these webinars, and if post-webinar you feel that you would like to watch the recording, send me an email and I can send you a link so you can re-watch the webinar, but feel free to take notes. I think the most important thing is to participate and also write down comments as well as questions, but think or apply the knowledge to your own personal public speaking, presentation, facilitation, training style. Is there something that I've mentioned that you can include or that you could remove from what you're currently doing that would take you just one notch up to the next level of presentation skills? So think about a real life situation recently or one you've got coming up. Is there anything you can change? So the agenda for today, 6 mistakes. And this has come about from watching politicians recently. I've just come back from America and I've been watching Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, and I've also been watching a lot of our Australian politicians. So these are 6 common mistakes that if you were to eliminate them, you as a presenter and trainer, speaker will become more effective immediately. It's about the bouncy hands, pointing accusingly, using, like too many those, filler words. Passive or aggressive stance when you walk in the room, when you stand up to speak, when you are just standing there while the audience is doing an activity. All of that is saying heaps about you. People nodding in the background. I call these people noddies, mostly with politicians, but also with speakers, sometimes when they're being introduced, and your eye contact, that wandering eyes or that lack of eye contact. These are 6 common mistakes that can really have a negative impact on you as a speaker and presenter. I'm going to go through these as usual, one by one. Bouncy hand gestures. Bernie Sanders to my right on the screen and Malcolm Turnbull to the left. One of the things they do is bounce their hands up and down in time as they speak. And they think that this is good nonverbal communication. The other one, of course, is the karate chop. As I'm making a point, I chop my hand up and down in line with what I'm saying. Some of you are already crying out, Peter, please stop doing that. So what do you do with your gestures if you don't do bouncy hand gestures? And it's called the frozen hand gesture. So let me show you the correct way to gesture. And I'm going to have to artificially use some gestures just to illustrate. One of the things you may have noticed is that I talk and I pause. I say something then I pause and I say something else. The pause is really good. It's good for breathing. It's good to gather your thoughts. It also punctuates and illuminates the speech. It's what you do with your hands during the pause that makes you look intelligent. So you can see my hands now. The idea is that I only move my gesture as I'm speaking. I then freeze it within the pause. The reverse of this is to move my hands around during the silence, and that doesn't look good. So Malcolm Turnbull, Bernie Sanders make good gestures. They're inclusive. They're moving you from one point to another point. Great gestures. I just wish that they wouldn't bounce their gestures as they're making one point or another point. Make the gesture and freeze it. Make the gesture and freeze it. Don't do the bounce as you make your gesture. Any questions on that? Was that clear or was that a little bit confusing? How do you know if you're bouncing gestures? I guess the whole key of this webinar is you need to invite feedback into your presentation skills. Video record yourself. Practice in front of the mirror. Get a colleague or a coach or a mentor or a friend to give you feedback. Am I bouncing my gestures as I speak? Eliminate the bounce. Second mistake is pointing accusingly at the audience. Donald Trump is very good at that. And what you get is that hard point. Your fault. What are you going to do about this? And let's put the bounce in as well. Around the world, women audiences are sick and tired of male speakers pointing at the audience, pointing at people. Please eliminate the point. The Australian politicians do a lot of pointing as well. And at the press conferences, you see them as they're talking, they point. There's a better way of doing a directional gesture. And simply, it's to use a soft hand. You would know what I'm talking about. Palm up, and this is a different webinar, palm up is more approachable. Look, I'm really glad you're here. We're going to have a great time. You would know that this is a really important issue and we need to work on it. So this is you, not you, just the gentle you would know. And if you want to be more credible, what are we all going to do about this? Palm down is a little bit more credible. Side on's okay, but side on gets into that sharp pointing. So be careful, palms up and then gesture. What are we going to do about that? I think all of you out there would agree, so I've gone to more credible. So don't point at your audience, whether it's a one-on-one conversation or whether it's presenting to many people. It's far better to use a softer directional gesture. The point is offensive. Certainly women are sick and tired of men who point accusingly at audiences. Women, by the way, don't object to female speakers pointing as much as they do to male speakers. Mistake number 3, and I illustrated this in my introduction. These are those filler words, the ums, the ahs, you know, and so. There are other filler words that are not just ums and ahs, but words that don't mean much. And I've heard one of our politicians who actually used a word that actually didn't mean much so many times that I actually got sick and tired of actually listening to them, and I'm actually not sure what they actually said actually. What we need to become comfortable with is silence. Are you a filler word person? I watched a YouTube video of Caroline Kennedy and she was being interviewed possibly for a Senate seat in New York, and she had 52 you-knows in the first 10 minutes of being interviewed on live television. So you know the Kennedys, you know they've always, been involved in politics, and we really do, like to give back. That was the end of her political campaign. And I've got a comment from Jürgen. Actually, can you explain that again? Now I'm assuming Jürgen's being humorous around the actually. Another one is that you obviously may not be aware of is that obviously unless we all come together, we're obviously going to have difficulty obviously finding a solution that we're obviously all chasing. And obviously what I want from you, thanks Jürgen, I'm glad it was a joke. And the obviously one is just another one of those superfluous words. Do you use filler words? Or are you comfortable with silence? The antidote. It's better to be silent. I showed you the frozen hand gesture up front. So I say some words and I freeze the gesture. During that freezing, it allows me to breathe in. When I breathe in, I'm more relaxed. When I breathe in, I've oxygenated my bloodstream better. If you keep talking and then say what you're really doing is exhaling when your respiratory system is already under stress. So far better rather than talking and it's now almost time to breathe, exhale. Far better to do talking, pause, talking. The pause is a really powerful thing. Creates suspense. The pre-pause elevates the importance of what you say next. Then the post-pause gives your audience time to absorb what's just been said. Try and eliminate those filler words. Mistake number 4, it's the stance that you do when you're speaking, when you're presenting. 2 kinds to avoid, passive or aggressive. And the passive stance is kind of like this one. It's called the fig leaf. You could also put your hands behind the back and it's just seen as passive. These ones would be, so try and avoid passive. These ones would be aggressive, hands on hips, arms folded. And I know he's got a fairly aggressive look on his face, but let's say he's got a neutral face. The arms folded as a speaker, as a presenter, may be perceived as closed or not open. Now, when you're an audience member or you're sitting in at a lecture or you're at a meeting, I do understand that this is just really comfortable to sit. But what I'm saying is as a speaker or presenter, please don't use that as your predominant or either of these as your predominant stance when you're not gesturing. So what is a good stance? There's 2 stances that we recommend. and that is hands by your side. So just by your side, lightly relaxed, not doing any finger gymnastics or, curling fingers or playing with rings. And then you just bring that hand up as you need to gesture. And then you can drop it back to the side. The other recommended resting position, which is a neutral stance, is in line with your belly button. So your hands are around about midriff, parallel to the ground. And if you watch our weather presenters, you will see, and they'll have a clicker in one hand and they'll point to the synoptic chart, cyclone forming off the northwest of Western Australia. Then they'll bring their hands back to the middle. And the third one is, of course, 50-50. One hand around your belly button region and the other one by your side, ready to bring those hands into the gesture as you need to. And when you're finished, you just drop them back to whatever your neutral position is. Avoid the aggressive stance. Do you know what your current stance is? What do you do when you default? What's your stance when you walk into a room? I see so many fig leaves, so many passive stance, which is straight away telling the audience, this person does not want to be here, this person is not confident. Even if that's not your intention, that's the message that's coming through. Mistake number 5. I call these noddies in the background, and we see it a lot with press conferences, and the people behind, the heads behind, are just nodding and nodding and nodding, up and down, in agreement with the speaker. I see this a lot in political speeches, in political rallies. What people don't realize is that that is visual noise. Can I just ask you a question? Who of you, when you're at a presentation, you're in the audience and someone's telephone goes off, who gets annoyed? A quick straw poll. Who gets annoyed when someone's mobile phone goes off in the middle of a presentation? Yep. Thanks, Anne. That annoys you. Does it annoy anyone else when the phone goes off mid-presentation? Yep. Good. Most of you. So you're probably auditory learners, and that auditory interruption, that sound, it's just distracting. And you kind of look at the person and the phone and it annoys you. The head nodding up and down for the non-speaker is visual pollution. Those of us who are visual learners will think, what is this nodding up and down about? The speaker is speaking to me. I will nod my head or shake my head or roll my eyes if I don't agree with him. The other guys in the background are not the audience. Now, how do you apply this to a public speaking perspective? You're about to train or you're about to present and the MC or the chairperson introduces you. The audience's eyes are on the MC. What you should do, although you're the keynote speaker or the trainer, you need to remain still. And what I do is I would do eye contact 70% on the MC, 30% on the audience. So most of my attention, like another audience member, would be looking at the person introducing me. I wouldn't be nodding my head or doing lots of non-verbals. If I focus my eye contact on you, the audience, as the MC's introducing me, you guys are going to start looking at me and I'm diminishing the importance or the status of the MC. So when the MC's presenting, it's his show, he's introducing me, so my focus must be 70% on him, but I want to scan the audience. I want to see your reaction as I'm being introduced. I want to see if there's any non-verbals happening, but I also want to build up the value and the status of the MC who's introducing me. So 70% of my attention will be on him, 30% on you guys, and I will not be nodding up or shaking my head, no, that's not right, what you've just said about me, because you guys will be distracted by my non-verbals. Any questions on that one? All right. Mistake number 6, moving along fairly quickly today, is the eye contact, the wandering eyes. I see this in politicians. I see this in other presenters. I see this at people at job interviews. I'm just reading some comments. So Holly, you couldn't hear me, but you can now. Good, good. For your comments, can you put them in the question dialog box as opposed to the chat box? I kind of use the chat box so it detracts from their confidence. For me, if a speaker has noddies, it implies they are not confident on their own. As a speaker with noddies, Julia Gillard had an issue where she used to bob her head up and down a little bit too much. Now, you do understand, my palms are up now, that this is lovely and approachable. I'm really glad to be here. I'm enjoying my time with you. I'm hoping I'm sharing lots of my knowledge. But at some stage, I need to keep my head still. This is where I'm now sending you information. My voice has changed and I'm becoming more credible. If I start to be credible, and now this is the 4 steps I want you to do, and my voice goes back to that lovely, welcoming, approachable voice, you're going to see me as, hey, this guy's got no credibility. Julia Gillard kept doing those little chook bobs regardless of whether she was sending information, wanting to be credible, or whether she was connecting and wanting to be approachable. So thanks for that comment, Holly. I've just noticed that off to the side. Eyes, eye contact, really important. It's kind of the used car salesman phenomenon. If I'm going to sell you guys out there in cyberspace and you're watching me, I'm going to sell you a second-hand car. I'm a used car salesman, and I want you to trust me. Now, I wouldn't lie to you. It's a good second-hand car. It's only had one user, got a good track record. Clearly, you're not going to buy that car off me. The other thing, in the real world, I can't see your eye contact now. It's my eye contact, my peripheral vision that picks up you guys. What if you're falling asleep? What if you are shaking your head and you're not agreeing with me? I need those nonverbal cues from you guys so I can change pace, go to a break, step back, acknowledge the elephant in the room. Not everyone's going to agree with what I'm saying now. I do acknowledge that. So just please, if you could bear with me for a moment, I want to explore a couple of ideas. That would be my response if I saw the nonverbal communication, if I saw the eye contact not being connected. So practice your eye contact. Even with a group of 100 people, I like to speak one-on-one. Then I move to another person and I speak one-on-one to that person for a while. And then there'll be someone over there and I have a chat for them for a few seconds. That way I can illustrate that I'm having conversations as opposed to just lecturing or sending information. What does your eye contact do as you're speaking? All right, they're the 6 mistakes to avoid in terms of nonverbal communication. So my call to action for today is for all of you to be more aware of your nonverbal communication and seek feedback and change it accordingly. If you are a noddy, do you do bouncy hand gestures that go up and down? And I've got a comment. When polys drop eye contact, as they often do, I take that comment as a lie on what they've just said. Interesting. Your nonverbal communication says so much about you. You're on before you're even on. So when you walk on stage as a trainer, a facilitator, or a presenter, the audience is already summing you up. Your nonverbal communications, are you looking confident? Are you breathing low and relaxed? Or have you got that shallow, nervous breathing that people will see? You've got about 15 seconds. So first impressions count. So thanks for that beautiful comment, Holly. Thank you for that. So yeah, become more aware. One of the things with nonverbal communication is we don't know we're doing. And I'm sure that if Malcolm Turnbull or Julia Gillard had had some professional nonverbal communication coaching, they would be able to just eliminate those things. And just the 1%ers, just by eliminating the bounce, the 1%er, as opposed to rather the 1%ers make a big difference. So simple. But this is for you. So seek feedback, and how are you going to improve your nonverbal communication? I've got some upcoming workshops. I've got people from all around Australia, so if there's anything that suits you, let me know. Perth, off the cuff tomorrow. My wife's doing assertiveness on Friday. We're in Bendigo doing thinking and speaking off the cuff on the 22nd of July. And then I'm in Melbourne, CBD, on the 28th of July doing winning presentation skills. We've got Brisbane in November. I know it's a long way away. But and we do have a trip to Sydney in October. I don't have any workshops planned or scheduled as yet, but we will be there, so we probably will do workshops. In-house workshops. If some of what I've taught you is valuable and you think your organisation would be worthwhile, we do travel and do in-house workshops. You know how to contact me. If I can be of any further assistance, you want a copy of the webinar recording or webinar slides, or you have additional questions that maybe I've glossed over. And this is just 6 of the common nonverbal mistakes. And there are others. And these ones were related to the previous election or the election time. I wrote a newsletter about it, so I thought I'd add it as a webinar. If there's no further questions, we'll end the webinar there. Holly, sorry about your connectivity. It's not working as well. And yeah, that's tough. So the recording will be good quality, Holly. So send for the recording and you should be able to get better quality audio and better quality video. Thanks, guys. No further questions. Then I'll end the webinar